Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Welcome to a very, very special series of Unlocking the Club, where we explore one of the most important yet often overlooked conversations that we can have, a conversation about estate planning and elder care. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and over the past few years, my family, my friends, we've learned the hard way about the critical importance of having a will or a trust in place. When unexpected moments arise, not having a plan can leave families vulnerable. And I've seen firsthand how it can create chaos during already challenging times. Recently, I conducted a poll, and the results were startling. 80% of the people that I polled between the ages of 20 and 65 don't have a will or a trust in place. Even more striking is that most of those who do take action, it's only after experiencing a tragic event in their family. National data suggests and supports this as well, with studies showing that a significant majority of adults, particularly between and within the Black and BIPOC communities, have not taken steps to secure their legacies. And when we fail to plan, we leave our families with legal battles, financial burdens, and emotional stress that can take years to untangle. That's why here at Unlocking the Club, we're dedicating an entire 12-part series to unlocking the essentials of estate planning, with bonus episodes focused on adjacent topics. Together with two brilliant minds, Shane Jasmine Young from Young Law Group and Verleana Green-Telusca from VDG Law Group, we'll break down what you need to know about protecting your assets, building a legacy, and making sure your loved ones are cared for when it matters the most. Our goal in this series is to equip you with the knowledge and the tools to take action now before life forces you to. Whether you're just starting out or navigating the complexities of caring for aging loved ones, these conversations will give you the clarity and the confidence to plan for your future. So grab your notebooks, tune in, and let's unlock this critical conversation together. Welcome to Unlocking the Club's special series on estate planning and elder care. To Unlocking the Club and our special series on elder care and estate planning. In today's session, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of advanced directives. Advanced directives are essential tools for making your healthcare wishes and making sure that they're honored, even when you're unable to communicate them yourself. So today we're going to explore what advanced directives are, why they matter, and how they can give you and your loved ones peace of mind during very difficult times. Joining us today to discuss the ins and outs of advanced directives is Verleana Green-Telusca of VDG Law Group. Verleana, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate you having me on yet again to talk about my passion.
Yeah, I'm loving these conversations. I'm learning so much from you, and certainly all of our listeners and viewers are as well. And now as we unpack these advanced directives, another big word that feels really intimidating. Can you share what exactly is an advanced directive and why is it a critical component of your estate planning process?
I try to make it as simple as possible. Advanced directives, they have two parts. One part says, this is what's going to happen if I become incapacitated and what's going to happen regarding my body if I'm unable to speak for myself. The other part of it is appointing someone as your power of attorney for health who's going to be able to communicate everything that's not written down on this piece of paper to your doctors, and also make medical decisions on your behalf, where you will live, providing your meals. If you are in a persistent vegetative state and it's unclear on the document what's going to happen, they will be making that decision on your behalf. So 2 parts, what's going to happen to me if I can't speak? The other part, this is the person who's going to be speaking on my behalf.
Okay. Well, can we unpack something? We've talked about it on previous episodes and conversations, this term incapacitated. Can you further define that for us? What does that look like? What does it entail? Can someone declare you incompetent or anything like that? Like, how does that terminology come about?
Incapacitation is a terminology that we use in the legal profession to determine whether or not someone is able to understand and make healthcare decisions for themselves. And that's as it relates to an advanced healthcare directive. If you don't have capacity, that means you don't understand, right? And the doctor determines whether or not you have capacity or not. Some different attorneys, they say this particular doctor makes that determination. And sometimes it could be a psychologist in the case of some of my clients who have illnesses such as dementia or Alzheimer's. And most of the time, it's your primary healthcare physician who determines incapacity. Typically, in an advanced healthcare directive, we want 2 people to make that determination just to be sure that you don't have capacity to make your own healthcare decisions for yourself.
Okay, really important. And I want to point out, we had on a previous episode a guest, Nia Masacero, who in her 30s was diagnosed with early onset dementia. And so oftentimes when we hear some of these terms and phrases, particularly as it pertains to our health, dementia, Alzheimer's, we assume it's later stages in life. It's for someone who is at retirement age or in their 60s or 70s. But it applies to many of us because of simply Nia's situation has proven that many of us can be incapacitated in various stages of our journey. And I wonder, Verleana, as you were providing expert guidance to your clients, why is it important to have an advanced directive in place, even if you are currently in good health?
It's important because we never know what's going to happen with our health. We never know the day, the hour when we go outside. And I gave you the example in the previous talk about power of attorneys. If we go outside right now, we're hit by a car, we're in a coma. What's going to happen to us? Right? We need that advanced healthcare directive to say, do I want to be on continuous life support or not? Yeah. And our values are different, right? Everybody has individual values and what we want. I have some clients who say, you know what? I'm done. If I'm brain dead, immediately take me off life support. There's no hope. And we have 2 treating physicians who say, I'm brain dead. I'm done. I don't want my family to see me that way. I don't want to have to pay for that, right? To be in the hospital on a ventilator. And I have other people who say, you know what? Keep me on for as long as possible. Give me 6 months. You never know. It could be a miracle. Right? Yeah. So I have different people who place different values on what should happen if I'm in this particular state. So it's vitally important that we think about it not only as older individuals, but as younger individuals as well, because we don't want our parents or other family members to fight about what should happen to our bodies. And we've seen it. We've seen it. For example, Bobby Christina, right? She was on life support for a significant period of time. Her dad and her mother's family, they didn't necessarily agree on what should happen when she was in that, what we call persistent vegetative state, right? You have one family member who wanted to keep her alive. Oh, she might come back. Oh, we want to maintain hope. Other family members who said, no, let her rest. You know what? They've already said she's gone. So what do you do in that situation? Pay attorneys to fight over what should happen?
Yeah. Well, I've heard so often from friends that right? They don't want their loved ones to have to go through the stress of making that decision. That's an extremely, if there is not an advance directive in place, it's extremely complicated, stressful, overwhelming for various family members to have to get aligned over what the decision is. And so the gift that you can give them is actually to solve for that in advance, right? Is to have a plan in place to communicate that plan with your loved ones so that it's clear and it's your wishes of how you want this journey to be for yourself. You mentioned before, make sure it's not just one person, but there's multiple people that understand what the advance directive is. Like, how do you ensure that your advance directive is actually legally valid and enforceable?
The first thing is that you want to go to an attorney. That's what I always tell my clients, because we have advanced healthcare directives that are unusable because they, for example, are not signed in front of a notary public, or some power of attorneys that are not signed at all. So we want to make sure that that attorney is able to look at that advanced healthcare directive and cover different aspects of it that we may not think about. For example, if you want to be buried or cremated, right? Some advanced healthcare directives that we get in the hospitals, they may not include that. Some advanced healthcare directives may not tell us whether or not the person wanted to live in assisted living or in their home with the help of caretakers. So going to a competent attorney to be able to set in place those things that an advanced healthcare directive would cover, and understanding that an advanced healthcare directive is distinguished from a power of attorney for finances, right? We don't want to include both of them in one document because that would invalidate it. There's distinctions in terms of the probate codes, particularly here in California, that power of attorney is governed by, and that advanced healthcare directive is governed by. These are legal documents. So go to an attorney if you're creating a legal document.
Okay. Well, and you bring up a really good point. And so often every hospital visit, right, as you're checking in, they ask you, do you want this advanced directive? Do you want to fill this paperwork out? Like, what would your advice be in those particular situations? Is it better than nothing, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, you want to fill out something. You want to have some sort of advanced healthcare directive in place. The problem with advanced healthcare directives at just your doctor that you're going to now, it may not transfer over to another doctor. Let's say you change your primary healthcare physician, right? It may not transfer over to that particular hospital. So having an advanced healthcare directive that you have in your estate plan binder that you can give to any doctor and make a copy of and say, here's my advanced healthcare directive. Here's the person who's going to be talking on my behalf and making decisions regarding should we do surgery or not. It's listed in this document.
Okay. Now that's a really good insight. And you think about it, every doctor's visit, and you end up grabbing it and throwing it in your purse or your bag and just moving on, but being really intentional about that. And if you already have it in place by working with your attorney, then you're set and you're covered in regardless of the situation. What are some of the key? Go ahead.
I was going to say, we mentioned it earlier about when we need to change our advanced healthcare directive. Let's say the person who was managing your health, who you named as your primary healthcare directive, passes away, or they themselves became incapacitated. You have a document that can be amended by an attorney to make someone else your advanced healthcare agent or your power of attorney for health.
Okay. Well, and in that process, is there here's the primary agent, and then if something were to happen to them, that you would have a secondary? Is that part of the process, or are they separate steps?
Absolutely. But sometimes people name one, sometimes people name two, and both those people pass away, right? We have people who are living well into 100 years old.
Yeah.
And they have their children who are transitioning before them. So we want to make sure that although we might have a person and a backup, that we can go to an attorney and say, hey, amend this document for me because this person is no longer here. And it's just a part of that estate plan checkup that we're doing with our attorney, with the power of attorney, with the living trust, with the will.
Okay. Well, on the previous episode, you talked about around the power of attorney, particularly the financial power of attorney, of being really selective in who is going to have that role as your agent. What are some of the key considerations when choosing someone to serve as your healthcare proxy or your medical power of attorney?
And that is a great question, because I have a lot of people, again, who want to select the oldest child, right? We want to select someone who's going to be able to make those hard decisions, and who's going to not allow the emotional aspect of the person who they care about take the day. We don't want our emotions to take over. We want them to be able to think logically, to be able to make a decision when it's needed, right? In a way that is calm, that is, they're thinking about what the person wants and not what they want. And I have a lot of kids who say, I can't do this. I can't let mom or dad or grandma go. But their advanced healthcare directive is clear. Pull the plug, right?
Yeah.
No.
A gift. It's a gift, right? It takes all that guesswork out of it and that guilt.
It does, but if your advanced healthcare agent isn't in an emotional state to make those hard decisions, to say, you know what, this is what this document states, and this is what we're going to actually do. And I'm giving you, doctor, permission to do this. And everything's not covered with an advanced healthcare directive, as much as we want everything to be listed, right? We can't list everything, from nutrition, hydration. When is that fine line when we say, okay, no more?
Yeah.
When do we say that? And it's hard, so you want someone who's emotionally stable to be in that place. You also want someone who is close to you. Now, with the power of attorney, we discussed in our previous episode, I don't necessarily think they have to be in very close proximity. They can be close enough, but power of attorney for health, very important that they're close by.
Okay.
They have to be at least in the same state to be able to get on a plane at least an hour away. And I don't even suggest that. Be in the same city so that they're able to take you to the doctor, right? If you need to be taken to the doctor. Making sure that they're able to manage your healthcare in a way where they're able to act and they're able to get to you right away. You don't want someone who's way across country or even out of the country to be managing your health or your mental care. You want someone who's near. You want someone who's able to talk to your doctors. They're able to get in contact with you. They're able to come to your home if you're not answering the phone, for example. They're able to be in close proximity to you. So 1, emotionally stable. 2, close proximity. And 3, somebody who actually knows you. This one is personal, right? So you want someone who knows you, who's going to be compassionate, who's going to treat you with dignity if something happens to you, right? We want to make sure if something happens, like you talked about that 30-year-old who developed Alzheimer's, dementia, you want someone who's going to be able to have compassion, who's going to take care of you.
Yeah, I love that. Someone who's emotionally stable, someone who has a close proximity, and someone you can trust or that knows you. Really important. And for the second one, in close proximity, it's essential if you have a healthcare advocate who's attending some of your medical appointments with you, so they are as familiar with the medications, all of the different procedures you've had, so they can recall it right away. Like it's understated, but really, really important, because in that moment when decisions are having been made, to have someone who is advocating for you in those rooms is phenomenal, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the power of attorney for finances is important, but I absolutely think the advanced healthcare directive is even more critical. I find this a point of contention amongst family members all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what should we do with mom or dad? I even had another attorney call me up And he said, Verleana, I don't know what to do. We have someone whose parent is at the funeral home, and the two siblings, they can't figure out if mom should be buried or cremated. So everything is at a standstill until we get a court order.
Yes. Yes.
What?
Unbelievable. But it happens. It happens on a regular basis. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Verleana, you mentioned that the healthcare directive can't cover everything. What are some of the main things that should be included in that directive?
One, pointing out who's going to be the person who's going to take care of you. Absolutely. You have to make sure Advanced Healthcare Directive is saying this person is able to make decisions for me if I'm unable to make decisions for myself.
Okay.
2, if you want to be buried or cremated. 3, if you want gifts of your body parts to be made. That's very important, particularly based on your belief system. Different people have strong beliefs either way, right? Some people say, you know what? I believe that my body, it did well while I was here, but now it's time for me to move on, and I want someone else to be able to use certain aspects of my body if needed. Other people are saying, no, keep me intact, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be buried or cremated, that's the first thing they are going to ask you when you are at the funeral home. At least your family, they're going to say, do you have an advanced healthcare directive? What does the advanced healthcare directive say? And it's going to tell us what we should do with your body. Another critical thing in your advanced healthcare directive is if you want to be in a facility or not. Okay. And I think that's really important, particularly with my clients who have dementia, Alzheimer's, and we're figuring out whether or not we should sell a particular asset, whether or not we should use assets in order to maintain that person in their home. Your advanced healthcare directive should indicate that. Some people are like, I don't want to be a burden on my family. I don't want that to be an issue. I have, children or grandchildren who are working adults, or they have their own lives. They have children on their own. I have other people who say, you know what, I have enough assets to hire caregivers, so do not put me in assisted living. I want to stay here. I want to be in the environment that I'm familiar with. And if you don't have that in place, then we don't know what to do. We're guessing about what you would like and what makes you feel the most comfortable. But if we know and it's in writing, then state it. We know what to do with you. We know how to make you comfortable, even if you can't recognize family members and you can't express yourself. Yeah. Who's going to be your conservator? So while we don't want conservatorships, they often do come up. If we have a person who is, for example, being abused, there's issues of something that needs to go before the court. We want to know who's going to be your legal representative for any sort of court proceeding as it relates to your health and as it relates to your body. Okay. So some of those are basic things. Where you're going to live, the person who's going to be making those decisions, if you want to be buried or cremated. And another thing that I tell my clients, do you want to be on continuous life support if you're in what we call a persistent vegetative state? If your doctor said this person is completely brain dead, there's no hope of you regaining consciousness, do you want to be on life support or not, and how long? So those are the things that should be included and are critically important if you have an advanced healthcare directive.
Okay. So what's really important is that we have conversations about these. And what I know for sure, and it's happened in my family and it's happened in my network, is oftentimes these conversations take place on the precipice of some life circumstance, and there's tension and friction and overwhelm and stress in the air. And so these become incredibly stressful conversations, and you don't necessarily get the answers that you want, particularly if it's the person that's involved. Sometimes they don't want to continue on in this conversation because it's stressful and it's overwhelming. How and when should someone start a conversation with their family and their healthcare provider about their advanced directive wishes?
When they have capacity. And when they are in a situation that's relaxed, we're not stressful, we're able to be thoughtful about what our wishes are. So it may not be in the doctor's office. It may be sitting around the dinner table and saying, you know what, hey, this is what I would want to happen to me. And I've talked to my attorney about some of these things. And, what are you guys thinking about that? Not what do you want, because we all have our personal belief systems and what we want to happen to our bodies, but just getting some input and feedback from family members when we're not in a stressful situation and the decision has to be made on the spot. We want to be thoughtful, and we want our family members to know that this is really what I want. When we see that, sometimes when I'm executing an estate plan, when someone's actually incapacitated, right? And the doctor says this person is incapacitated, their family members are just surprised. What? Is this what they really wanted? Right? And if you have that conversation before your family members needs to exercise that advanced healthcare directive or power of attorney for health, it makes it more digestible. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Now I understand why you want this. And no, I'm not going to do something that you don't want. I understand this is what you want. So I'm going to uphold your wishes. And if it's something that's not covered by this, we did have a conversation about how you want to live your life in dignity.
Yeah, it's really important. I recall, just for me personally, I was the healthcare advocate for my mother. I went to a lot of her doctor's appointments with her, and they would hand you that paperwork and ask you to talk about it. I would kind of look at my mom, and it was off limits. She didn't want to have that conversation. And when she passed, I remember a month later, she passed around Thanksgiving, right around Christmas. My siblings, my two brothers, and I were all at home with my father. And we actually, over dinner one night, just started having that conversation with my dad. And it was so refreshing. It was much more relaxed than it could have otherwise have been, because it was a normal course of the conversation. And we each started talking about what our own wishes were and what our estate planning was. And so it is finding those spaces to have this really important conversation in your everyday places. Right? Just the normal course of a conversation could be really powerful. And I think long-term, the way we entered into estate planning with my father was much different than on the back end of having to resolve my mother's estates.
Absolutely. And you probably learned from that.
Yeah.
You learned, a lot of things. Okay, let's talk about it before we need it. Let's talk about it in a way that we're in a relaxed setting, that we don't need to fill out something right now on the spot. Do it. You're in the office, you need to do it right now, where we're having these conversations and we feel like, oh, it's a part of our everyday life and not something that is going to bring on death, is going to bring on sickness. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
We were talking about music selections, right? It was just like, it actually was uplifting to a certain extent.
Right. And those are the things that you may want to include in your advanced healthcare directive. I have people who say where they want to be buried, how they want their memorial or funeral to look like, what kind of music they want, what colors they want, how they want to handle transitioning, particularly with their body. So it's important that we make those decisions and we think about it before we actually need it.
Well, and are these advanced healthcare directives, are they legally binding across state lines, or do they need to be updated if you move?
That is a great question. Yes, all of your state documents are binding. If you are a resident of California, for example, and you move out of state to Texas, it's still a legal document in Texas.
Oh, good.
Yes. So all the states, we have full faith and credit, what it's called, and every other state full faith and credit to someone's wishes, regardless of if it's in that state. Now, there are caveats to it because now we do have some state laws, depending on where you are, as it relates to end of life.
Okay.
So some people do have end of life decision making in certain states, and other states they can't do that. For example, if you have dementia, or you have some sort of long term illness, you have states that say, you know what, we will provide you with certain medications that will uh, have the onset of early death.
Okay.
So
Okay.
some states they just can't because they don't do that. It's not legal in certain states. Other than that, yes, full faith and credit.
Okay, now that's good to know. That was one thing that concerned, just particularly now as people are migrating so fluidly. It's good to know that they are binding. And what's the difference? The vernacular is intimidating as well. What is the difference between an advanced directive and a living will, if there is one? And do you need both, or do you prioritize one or the other?
So it depends on the state. And in California, we don't have what was termed as living wills. We primarily, under the probate code, have advanced healthcare directives and power of attorneys for health. So that is just the terminology it's interchangeable. Just like if I would say a revocable trust, a inter vivos trust, a living trust, they're all the same thing. So a lot of different states say a living will or a power of attorney for health or an advanced healthcare directive, and those are interchangeable terms.
Okay. Okay. Well, in all of your work that you've done, I know that you've shared a lot of powerful anecdotal stories. Are there any stories around advanced healthcare directives that you can share that kind of bring all of this to life?
Oh, absolutely. I have tons. In terms of advanced healthcare directives, particularly when I have clients who have more than one child, right? And what happens is that I'll get a client and they will have a parent who is suffering from an illness, let's say dementia. And it happens often. So it's not just one particular client that I'm talking about. It's several clients who have this situation happen where they do have two children, let's say two or multiple children, mom with dementia, and one says, you know what, let's put mom in a home. Another child who says, no, we want to make sure that mom stays in her home. It's her surroundings, it's what she knows, and she'll feel more comfortable. Well, what ends up happening if those siblings cannot agree, and it may not just be based on their disagreement regarding mom, they probably just don't like each other. And what typically happens is that there's a power struggle, right? Who's going to be able to make a decision about where mom should live, right? So they end up hiring attorneys, going to court, going to trial to determine who's the best person who's going to be able to make the decisions and decide about what's going to happen to mom. Typically, in 50% of the cases or more, it's neither daughter, it's someone else who's outside of the family, what we call a private fiduciary, who's going to end up making those decisions because the children can't get along.
Whew, that's another episode right there.
It's a whole episode where we talk about people who are disconnected with the family because the family can't make those decisions, and because we have a parent, typically it's the parent, who didn't execute an advanced healthcare directive saying this child is going to be able to make that decision when it comes to my health, or put in writing, I want to be in a home or not.
Yeah. Yeah. like simple things, that you can resolve before it gets to this chaotic situation by having these conversations. Well, so when we take a look at advanced healthcare directives, what is one piece of information, if anybody could take anything away from this conversation that we've had today, what would the one piece of advice that you would have?
Advanced healthcare directives are for anyone. We want to make sure that your loved ones are thinking about you and your care and not stressing about what decisions to make regarding your well-being and your body. Well so said. Let's take the guesswork out of it. Write your wishes down. Write what you want to happen to your body. Do that in advance.
Yes. Let's take the guessing game out of it, right? Thank you so much for that advice. It's clear that taking these small proactive steps can literally make a world of difference down the road for individuals and the collective family, friends, and network. And so for our listeners, whether you're just starting your estate planning journey or you're thinking about revisiting your plans, I hope that today's conversation with Verleana about advanced healthcare directives serves as a nice grounding space for you to think about, to start to enter these conversations with your family members and to start to put some things in place so that when and if something gets to those tragic circumstances, those moments when we aren't quite ready to make decisions, that you have it down on paper and that you can, again, protect your and your family's journey and assets. Verleana, it's such a pleasure having you and being part of these conversations. I'm learning so much about the estate planning process, and I appreciate your expertise. Thank you for sharing that and kind of helping us navigate these complex and complicated topics.
My pleasure, Angela. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, for our audience, I hope you found this episode helpful. Don't forget to share this information with your family and friends. It does make such a huge difference in our journeys. For Unlocking the Club, I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.